Exciting webinar and event on how to really maximize your retail space, especially because this summer is a huge opportunity to attract tourists with all of the events that are planned. So thank you to Gensler for hosting us. And with that, I'll pass it over to Tyler Winograd from the Retail Design Studio at Gensler.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Like Maggie said, my name is Tyler Winograd. I'm the director of our retail design studio here at Gensler, New York. And when we say retail, we really mean retail, like stores, but also restaurants, bars, and sort of what I would consider consumer-facing environments in the city. So sort of anything in between. And that's, I'm sure lots of you have seen, there are many environments in the city now that sort of blend all three of those things. It's kind of a restaurant, kind of a store, maybe kind of something else. And today, we're going to talk about owning your unique New York story. Like Maggie said, we're anticipating a lot of traffic into the city this year for a number of reasons. I think over the past few years, you've seen visitation to New York and tourism in New York start to really creep back towards those pre-COVID numbers. And then we have a number of significant events in the city this year that are really exciting. And we'll talk about those in a little bit more detail. So here's just a little agenda of what we're going to go through. I'll talk a little bit about Gensler and what we do, just by show of hands, who's familiar with Gensler? Anyone? Okay, wow, great. Um, and thinking about how we can leverage design to drive business. And when we say leverage design, we don't necessarily mean redesigning your environments or designing new environments or new things within your environments, but really it's about thinking like a designer to hopefully better capture people's imaginations, to bring them into the store or into your environment, and then better capture their attention and I think ideally their dollars at the end of the day within your stores. And by raise of hands, how many people here sort of work on, oversee, own a store proper? None. What's that? Okay. Restaurants? Bars? Okay, shout for the other types. Services, cool. What is it? Retail. Oh, great. Okay. Anything else?
We teach entrepreneurs want to open a retail store at.
Very cool. Okay, great.
And
Okay,
we
so we have a
also
wide mix. And like I said, when I say retail today, and I'll try not to only use that word, we're really talking about environments in which people are transacting, whether it be for services, products, goods, you name it. And I think a lot of what I'm going to speak about today is a little bit more generic in that it can be applied to lots of different types of businesses. We'll get into a little bit more detail about those events this summer and what types of people are going to be coming into the city for those events and how you might think about better capturing their attention. And really thinking about how you can continue to make the small businesses that we think are the sort of cornerstone of the New York experiences more unique and stand out to more people. And then thinking from a Gensler lens, so a designer lens, thinking about the experience that you're trying to have those guests have within your space, how you might craft a story that resonates with them, as well as preparing, and again, not just a store, but any environment in a more strategic manner to hopefully capture their conversion into being customers. So just a little bit about Gensler. We're a global design and architecture firm. We have offices all over the world. We were founded in San Francisco, obviously have a large office here in New York. And over the years, we have really become a full service multidisciplinary design firm. So that's everything from architecture to interior design to digital design, brand design. And we love designing all types of environments. So whether that's a 1,000 square foot store in Manhattan all the way up to JFK, a large airport in our city, and then other environments all around the world of all shapes and sizes. And something that's really important, I think that we've really evolved our perspective around is that just getting sort of butts in seats or traffic is not the only metric of success. We want those people to convert into not only customers, but lifelong fans, repeat customers, even brand ambassadors for your business, people that have such a great experience or enjoy your product so much that they tell other people about it. And we feel as though design can be a powerful tool for all of that. It's not just about creating a pretty space. It's about designing a holistic experience so that people feel good, enjoy themselves, and purchase your products or purchase your services. So these are four big buckets, again, that I think can be applied to lots of different types of scenarios. And the first is really appealing to different audiences, or said differently, understanding your different audiences. Who are the different types of people that are going to be in the city, either permanently or temporarily for events this summer, or again, across the 365-day calendar, and what might they be interested in? How do we drive sales or convert sales and conversion? And again, not just sales, but really creating lifelong fans and customers. Are there simple changes that you can make within your environments or within your business or in the way in which you communicate about your business through marketing and advertising that might really ramp up that value proposition, might resonate with more people, and really build more excitement? And then syncing with summer events. It sounds, sort of simple, but being proactive, kind of taking a step back, which I know can be very difficult from the day to day of your business, and looking forward, whether it be the summer or another time of year, but thinking about what that sort of calendar of events that the city has to offer, what does that have to offer you? What is that, where is there energy and momentum that you might be able to leverage and sort of join in on to therefore get more people into your business? And I think this is a really simple way to think about it. Think about your store, think about your physical environment as one giant ad, right? If you sort of break that down, the windows are the first thing they see. That's the headline. What are you saying to potential customers through that headline? The interiors, the inside of your store or environment is kind of like that guided story. It's the double click. You're learning more about a business or an offering. And then within that, you can have variety. You can have temporary activations. You could have events within the store. You might change the product offering, change the look and feel of it sometimes. And all of that is sort of one large cohesive advertisement for what your business is offering at the core of it. I'll pause because I saw you taking a picture. So understanding event options. This summer is a particularly very busy summer in New York, which is exciting. I think a lot of us locals, complain or lament about tourists at some point or another, but I think you all very well know they make our economy run. It really does power the city. It powers all of our lives, our livelihoods, and so it's important to consider them just as key stakeholders in our community as we are. So these big summer events don't just drive business and foot traffic to the events, but they actually do empower our holistic economy in the city. These citywide events that we'll talk about, sort of across multiple boroughs, there are events that are in singular boroughs, and then events that are maybe even a little bit smaller on a community scale. They all have effects on businesses. They're going to increase the populations in certain neighborhoods. They're going to keep people in the city for long periods of time, potentially, with certain soccer events this summer that are multiple weeks long. And these are opportunities for you to utilize that as a catalyst for maybe offering something different, maybe partnering with other businesses, activating things within your store, even within the neighborhood, sort of as a co-op to capture that energy of the people that will be in the city. And so just a quick sort of recap of some of those bigger events. And I think it's, there's some very impressive estimated numbers here. With that large global soccer event, we are estimating 1 million visitors and $2 billion in spending. I think we've all seen some headlines recently about the cost of some of the activities related to that event. It's an expensive event, but it means that there are people coming here anticipating to spend lots of money. And it's not just at that event, but also in the city. The annual Pride celebration is 2.5 million spectators. And then tourism over this summer generally is expected to top 7 million, which is a pretty impressive number. And so these are all amazing opportunities for us to both increase traffic and increase sales, but also have a real effect on people's experience in New York. If we can proactively think about how we might cater to their needs and make them happy, make them feel good, they might come back the next summer, right? It's not just a one-time sort of shop and done. And then here's just a quick list. I'm sure lots of you are aware, but even just at a very cursory glance, there are lots of different events happening in every borough. There's certainly something every day, which is kind of the beauty of New York. But again, a lot of this presentation is about how do we take a step back and strategically think about these things that are going to be happening in the future and identify which events might be best correlated to your business. Are there certain ones that maybe are better aligned with your offering, or maybe there are certain events that are better aligned with you as a brand, your story, and what you stand for, and you can show some real authenticity by partnering with those events or trying to leverage the traffic that'll be in the city because of those events. So what's interesting is that, and I sort of alluded to this, what we've found is that tourists or visitors to New York and locals are actually both looking for really similar things. They're looking for unique experiences, they're looking to enjoy themselves, and they're looking for something memorable. And sometimes that can be a pretty big Venn diagram in terms of that middle space, that you might have an offering that caters to both of those groups of people, but in slightly different ways. And sometimes it might be a bit smaller of a Venn diagram in that there are tourists looking for a certain version of a restaurant, for example. Maybe they're looking for a big group dinner because they're here as a family on the weekend, and a local is looking to come dine at your restaurant on a Monday night just by themselves for a drink. So you're capturing both of those audiences, and they're looking for very similar things, but maybe in a slightly different offering. And so as we get a little bit deeper into the presentation and we think about understanding our audiences, that'll be important to consider. So we've got a little kind of quick poll that Zach is going to start. And if anyone typed in their information at the beginning, or you can just scan the QR code here. It's just a quick, fun, interactive poll and might spark some conversation. And so the question is, do you plan to activate your business through the citywide or local events this summer? Has that been on your mind, or is this maybe the first time you're starting to think about that? And both answers are correct, if you will. Wow. Quick responses. Thank you, everyone. Okay, so most people are yes, which is probably how you find yourself in this room. A few people no, and a few people undecided, and that's all okay. But I think, again, the purpose of today's conversation is to spark some new ways of thinking, maybe some new ideas in terms of how you might activate your business or get your interest in sort of branching out and starting to make some connectivity with events in the city this summer. So can let me, thank you. So we have a little model here, something that we call the Gensler experience model. And it takes a couple of different forms, but usually it's the combination of three key factors that we find make a really great experience. And in this case, we're going to talk about crafting your story. How do you communicate what your business or your brand stands for? How do you activate, in this case, your store, but again, it could be any environment. And how do you really cater specifically to your audience, whether that's a target audience or an anticipated audience in this case? And when those three things are considered thoughtfully and sort of in equal parts, we think that that creates a really unique experience. And when you think, if you kind of take a step back and pull away one of those legs of the stool, you can see how it might be sort of missing a key element. If you've thought about your audience and you've activated your store, but you're not really communicating something clear, you're not standing for a clear brand purpose or a value proposition, people might walk in and say, what am I supposed to do here? And so we always try to consider these three factors sort of in unison to create the most impactful experience. And in this case, we're talking about this summer audience, these people that are likely going to be flooding the city for these events. And before we talk about targeting certain customer groups, I think a really helpful way to think about that is really just understanding your audience. There might be lots of different types of people coming into the city for these different events or in the city at any given day. And you could target all of them. But if you're not taking the time to reflect on what are their needs, what are their desires, what sort of mindset might they have coming into your business, you might miss being able to make that connection. And so there are lots of different unique customer types, all of which have some overlap, but it's really important to consider the differences between a family, a couple that's here on a honeymoon, a local, maybe a business meeting, right? Like these all have different purposes for being in retail or consumer facing environments. There are very specific needs for people that are traveling for events, whether it's time oriented, knowledge oriented, not knowing where they are, potentially, sort of emergency related. They need something and they need it quick. They don't have it. And so thinking about the event mindset can be very helpful. That allows you to really define those needs and then therefore define the solutions you might provide for them and then creatively tailoring that experience. How do you sort of pull different levers within the experience that you offer to be better suited for those different groups of customers? And so these are 7 different types of customers. These are not the only ones that might exist, and they're not totally separate, right? You could have a local who's also a socialite, for example. But I think this model can be really helpful in thinking about, are these different types of groups prevalent in my business? Are certain parts of this segmentation more attracted to my business or maybe more likely to engage with my business, make a purchase? Or in this case, are some of these groups going to be more prevalent for certain types of events? Might you have more, oh, sorry, I can't see the bottom there. Thank you. Might you have more socialites coming for sporting events? Or more families for 4th of July, for example, and thinking about the time of year, the event, the calendar of events, and how those people might sort of triangulate themselves to those different times of year. Thank you. And so for this summer, we really thought that there are 3 main components of these different types of customer groups. You've got sports fans. There are events that happen every year, like the US Open. We have events that are happening very seldom, like the soccer tournament that's happening this summer across the country. And they're going to be looking for pretty specific things. If they're not going to games or matches, they might be looking for communal spaces to watch those games, to talk about those games, to hang out with their friends that they're maybe meeting in the city for those games on an actual match day or a game day, which can happen frequently when you think about things like a Knicks game, or infrequently like the US Open. Maybe they're coming before or after and they have a time limit and they're looking to eat, drink, hang out, socialize. Cultural groups are a little bit more specific. These might be people that are here for the Puerto Rican Day Parade, for example, and they're culturally aligned to the event that's happening. And they might be looking for businesses that support that cultural event, maybe businesses that are partaking in the event or have some sort of cultural connection as well. And they feel more at home, more attracted to those places. And they're often looking for experiences that are really locally rooted. And then NYC visitors, this is sort of, across all of these types of events across different times of year, but often they're looking for that classic New York experience, right? They've seen things in movies, they've seen things on TV, or they've done their research and they're looking to recreate that. They might be with families or sort of larger groups, and they want to make memories. And just because they've seen their version of New York in that movie or that TV show doesn't mean that your business or your offering can't be a part of the memory that they make here. Thank you. Is this not working? Yeah. And then so within the types of customer groups, there are also different types of events, which might bring different types of customer needs. So if you think about a day event, it's short. You want to maximize your visibility, probably maximize your volume and your throughput. But these are also people that, like I said, are on a time constraint. They're probably coming just once, right? They're going to do something special before the event, do something special afterwards. And so they're looking for speed and clarity and a good experience and probably have a premeditated need that they're trying to fill, right? They need to find this drink or the food or the sunglasses that they forgot. With weekend events, it can be pretty similar, but they've got a little bit more time. So maybe they come and use your business twice. Maybe they're looking to set up just a quick routine for a 3-day music festival or a 3-day sports tournament. And so they want places not just to do something before and after, but maybe to kill some time during the day and pause and socialize. Or they have time that's not quite scheduled or programmed aligned with an event. And so these can be these sort of like 3 to 4 day customers that you can convert to loyalists. And then with the multi-week events, this sort of builds up to this. These are people that might actually be building a routine. Maybe they're in New York for 2 weeks and they want to get coffee at the same place every morning. Or they're in New York for a couple of weeks and are looking for somewhere where they can buy new clothes more than once. And so you might be able to really become a part of this person's routine while they're in the city. either by way of a great customer experience, a great product, or a great overall experience when they're in your store or your environment. And so thinking about how those people's mindsets might shift while being here for a little bit more of an extended time. Okay, so another quick poll. What customers do you think that you attract? Thinking about your business, are there certain kind of archetypes that you think are more likely, or historically you've sort of looked at the data or you have a gut feeling, visit your business or purchase your products and services? Pretty even split. So we've got the biggest group being the local, which makes sense. Um, the white is the expert, creatives, family. Yeah, that's great. And also great that you all have a strong opinion about this. It means you're a step ahead of this presentation and really thinking about your customers. I think the really important thing there to think about is that there is overlap in these groups. Like I said at the beginning of this section, you might have families that are all creatives. You might have families that want something for their kids to be entertained by or a safe environment for their kids, but the parents also want to have fun. That's okay.
Talking about this for 2 years. I have to set the record straight. No, sorry.
No worries. And so once we've thought about the events and the people that are coming to the city, and again, that's specific to this summer, but you might just think about this in an evergreen way. Who are the types of people that are in and around the city? Am I going to capture their attention, capture their sales? And then therefore, how might I build a really unique New York story? And I think what's so important about this is that even as the city has changed in shape and size and makeup of people and businesses, we strongly believe that these small businesses are what make New York, New York. I was just talking to Maggie about this. You can go to lots of cities across the US, and I think unfortunately you start to see lots of the same things, right? Lots of the same businesses, and it might have lost some of that character. And what makes New York so different is that's not true. We have small businesses that have unique stories, have the unique people, and have lasted the test of time, and new ones that are coming online every day. And so by amplifying those stories, we're maintaining that New York that these tourists are looking to experience. We're giving them the option to meet someone face to face in the butcher shop, in the coffee shop, in the clothing store that feels like they couldn't have done it anywhere else but New York. And so the key part of that is being able to craft that unique story, that story that is unique to your business, your heritage, your value proposition, the people that work there, the products that you offer, and being able to communicate that clearly and in a way that resonates with those customers that we just talked about. And so these are just a few examples of different angles that, excuse me, you might be able to think about that make your business unique. You might have a really unique founder story. There might be something about your identity that is strongly tied to the borough that you're in or the neighborhood that you're in. You might have a really unique product or service offering that you feel nobody else has, or you do it in a way that is different from anyone else. These are all amazing stories that you can amplify to create more attention with potential customers and probably create repeat customers when they come into your store. And I think what we find so often is that there are lots of small businesses or businesses really in general that aren't getting enough credit for the really unique stories that they have. They've got this amazing heritage, or they've got this amazing story as to how they became in business, but they're not telling anyone. Unless you go into that store and you end up having a deep conversation with somebody that works there, people don't realize it. And if they only realized it, they might be really excited to come into your business. And so again, just taking a moment to sort of have that foresight and think, well, we actually do have something really unique that we could talk about, and let's think about how we might do that. And as part of that, leveraging your cultural connections is one of the most unique ways in which you could do that. Obviously, New York has been and always will be a sort of cultural melting pot, whether that be an Asian experience, the Black experience, food being a cornerstone of our culture, arts and performing arts and music. These are all different sort of big cultural buckets that are alive and well in New York, and you might be able to tap into or leverage or sort of align yourself with to show that group of people, show those potential customers, this is what we stand for. This is what we're interested in, and this is what we support. This is a place that we support what you're interested in your culture. And then I need not go through the list, but location is super important, right? As big as New York is, as big as each borough is, it really is a collection of small neighborhoods. And the difference between Chelsea and Mott Haven is stark, but they each have their own unique story. They have their own unique groups of people. And then therefore, probably the most, they each have their own unique way of resonating with their local community and customers and telling a story that is differentiated. And so that's a really cool, differentiated opportunity that we have in New York is there's so many layers and depths to who we are and where we are that you can take advantage of that as a business and really lean into it for authenticity. So these are just a couple of quick examples that we think are interesting. This one's not too far from here, Tomi Jazz, and it's a blend between this Japanese jazz club and a New York sort of speakeasy. And I think it's cliche, but it's sort of like where else in the world could that happen? But they've done a really nice job of staying true to their heritage and really amplifying the fact that they have these deep roots in Japan. Their founders are from Japan, and their offering can't be found anywhere else. And so you could go walk, I don't know, 10 blocks and see 10 different jazz clubs in New York, right? And they all probably feel pretty similar, but they know that they have a unique offering. And so you'll see in the way that they speak about their business, the way that you experience the place when you're actually there, and the way that you learn about it, it is very heavily influenced by their cultural heritage. Another fun one is Greenwich Letterpress. This was started by two sisters who came from a family of sort of printing press owners and a long heritage of owning an actual printing press, I think in New Jersey. And when they started their business, they had an opportunity to sort of do two things. They could have taken over the family press and continued that happening, or leaned into what they were personally really passionate about, which was the output of that press, the products that you see in their store, and opened a store in New York. And so they've found this really amazing way to connect to their true authentic heritage or story through the family history of the business, but pivoting that business to be a slightly different offering. And so what they're able to do is tell these rich stories that tie back to three generations within their family while offering a completely different business. And that provides, sort of this authentic platform for them to communicate with customers, to do marketing, and interact with their local community. And then lastly, Kaylinda Salon is a really fun one in which it's a new salon owned by a younger woman. It hasn't been in her family for generations, but what she's done is tried to imbue the cultural specificity of the way she grew up in a Latina neighborhood with Latin heritage around hospitality. There are, again, lots of salons that might be known for the best haircut or the best service, but leading with a hospitality first model of you're going to enjoy yourself when you're here. You're going to feel personalized. We're going to remember your name. We're going to have deep conversations when you're here, helps them to stand out, again, in a sea of lots of businesses and lots of options. And that was just, partially who she was and where she came from, but also a strategic or specific thought that she made. How could I offer something that's true to me, differentiated in the sort of marketplace or in the community, and one that I think will resonate with potential customers? And so we want to ask, what do you think is unique about your story? There might be lots of different things, but you all own or lead small businesses or started businesses. So you surely have something really powerful that you believe is unique to you. And again, a lot of this thought process is about taking that step back and thinking about how might I leverage that unique story or identity. So we've got 3 unique founder stories, 5. I figured that would be a popular one. NYC heritage, A killer service. I hope you all think you have killer service. A burrow story. Cool. And then maybe just by show of hands in terms of who's in the room, how many of you think you're sort of maximizing the opportunity in terms of leaning into that unique story? Great. Well, that's what we're talking about. So this next part is how do you activate your store? And I think because of the diversity of businesses or services that we have in the room, we can think about store as lots of different things. That could be a store, it could be a restaurant, it could be a physical environment, but it also may not be a physical environment at all. Maybe that's your website or your social media platforms or advertising that you might do. This type of thinking, the strategic thinking, also can influence the conversations you have with potential customers. How are you talking about your business? How's your team talking about your business in a way in which you're really activating and leveraging that unique story or value proposition? And so from a storefront perspective, or I'll say physical environment, there's three really key things to think about. And the first is, what are people going to notice first? If you remember back to the beginning of the presentation, thinking about a physical environment as a billboard or an ad, and as the old saying goes, you only have one chance to make a great first impression. It is true. And I think as consumers or everyday people, we've all been in that position, right? Maybe you're walking down a new street, either in New York or a city you're visiting, and you see two businesses and something about one catches your eye over the other, or one looks messy and cluttered and the other doesn't. And these are the first impressions that lead to conversions of foot traffic and then ultimately the most important conversion of sales. And so thinking about how people are going to experience your business when they first see it is really important. That's signage. That could be sandwich boards in the front of the store. It could also just be general cleanliness, right? Are you taking the time to maintain the footprint of your store and the front of your store so that people feel like it's a safe environment and they're welcome there? This is a real place. So yeah, Cafe Joy U is a really fun project that we designed just kind of a few blocks that way. And it's open today. It's a cafe and it's the first of its kind where their business model is that they only employ people that are neurodivergent or developmentally disabled. And so all of their staff have faced lots of challenges in their lives, and their business is to train them and equip them with the tools that they need to have jobs just like everybody else. And they work at this wonderful cafe that I think is probably the kind of best vibes, if you will. It's always happy and people are enjoying themselves, and it's a really fun environment. Oh, really? That's great. That's right. That's right.
So the pricing are very good, but they're not making much money.
That's right.
That's not the problem.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that's a key point of it, right? Being able to communicate your purpose. If you type in Cafe Joy U on Google, the first thing you'll read is what they stand for, what their mission is. And so again, you start to experience that when you get into their physical environment. You can read about it in the store. Sales associate will talk to you about it. But it's also consistent with all the messaging that they put out in the world from a marketing perspective. And so they thought about what do we stand for, what is our value proposition, and making sure that that's consistent across all touch points. And that's about what this exercise is about as well. And when you think about what is so unique about your stories and your histories. Clutter leads to confusion, and this is very similar to, I think, a basic business principle of you can't be everything to everyone. If you're trying to be everything to everyone, you're sort of nothing to everybody. And so clutter has the same effect. If you've got signage for all sorts of different promotions, or you're trying to capture the soccer event, the tennis event, and Pride at the same time, it's sort of like, wait a minute, what are they actually trying to communicate? What do they stand for? What's going on here? And then one story graphics, being able to tell a story in a very succinct, concise way, not trying to tell the whole story every time, but thinking about what are the key messages that I want people to understand or take away from this experience. So you just got some simple kind of do's and don'ts here. And this one does it well, right? Having one simple message, whether that's a promotion that you're trying to market, maybe a new product, maybe it's just that you're open and you want people to know that you're open, versus on the right, it's sort of like well, everything looks like it's on sale. You're selling everything. Which one is the most current? Which one should I be looking at first? And obviously, this environment is meant to look a little bit more dilapidated with the chairs, and it's not quite clean enough. But as you can see, all of our eyes are drawn quickly to the image on the left because it's easy to understand. It guides your eye towards the door. There's just one sign that you need to read. Got it. And I think we're sending this out afterwards, is that right? Yeah, great. So we can send this deck to all of you. Another one is just having too many different promotions. I think the summer is often a period of, of high volume in terms of promotions, whether that's an actual sale or different methodologies for getting people in the store. But again, if you have lots of them going on or lots of different signs, it can feel conflicting. People might not know exactly what you're selling or if it's right for them. And then thinking about less is more with signage is really important. And again, signage could be for an event, it could be at a store, at a restaurant. It can also be the way in which that you're posting graphics on Instagram, for example. Having a concise message that is simple to understand and doesn't have conflicting messaging across different outlets is really important. So if you think about the business on the left, they just have one sign that says what their business is called. And on the right, they've got a few different ones that say kind of different variations of that business name, what the offering is. And so you might have very different perceptions of what this business is offering and therefore, is it right for you? Okay, I think this is the last questionnaire, but what is the single message you want your storefront to send instantly to people walking by? So if you don't own a store, you could think about this as if they're visiting your website, maybe they're reading marketing materials or brochures that you have, maybe they're even just talking to a team member. What is the one core thing that you want those people to take away? So we've got a few answers. Fun is a great one. Happiness and human connection. Everything we sell is handmade and designed in New York State. That's very cool. Warm welcome. Two warm welcomes. Not your boring NYC souvenirs. These are great. So these are really good examples of value propositions or brand purposes that we as designers would use at the outset of any project. We might sit in a room with you and say, okay, if the one thing that we want to communicate to potential customers and our existing customers is that everything we sell is handmade and designed in New York State, what design decisions, what might we be able to make about your space or about the marketing collateral or even just the way we organize products and things within your space that can help communicate that message to guests and help communicate that quickly and concisely. So that might be telling stories about the product, telling stories about where it's made, equipping your team members with the information that they need to be able to communicate those stories to guests, and then arranging products within your store in a way that tell that story and tell it clearly. Maybe if you sell 3 different things and it comes from 3 different manufacturers or artists, you want to showcase that and tell that story clearly and loudly so it's not something that people just don't know. They walk in and it could be any other store. So that's just an example of how you might think about the key message that you want guests or customers to take away or understand about your business, and then sort of unpack that. What are the different opportunities within the store or with the environment or within the experience that we might be able to tell that story? And so when we think about messaging, just a couple of key ideas here, and we've used Cafe Joyeux as just a backdrop here. These aren't real advertisements that they've done, but designing layers and not designing things to be replaced is really important. And I think really important for small businesses. You don't want to be in the position to have to full stop take things down and reprint them or, sort of use something once and throw it away. And it's just a wasteful investment on your part. But rather, if we think about particularly a calendar of summer events proactively, we know these different things are coming. We're going to identify the different events that we think are best aligned for our business and we really want to target. And then you might be able to develop a system that is interchangeable, that can be updated cheaply. Maybe it's something that's digital, so you don't have to print it. But when we're thinking about signage and temporary activations, how might you get the sort of most bang for your buck and not have to sort of invest in that cost over and over? Again, avoiding visual clutter. Less is more always, both outside and inside the store. This is a big one that often gets overlooked, but is very much noticed by a potential guest or a customer, which is matching typography and color palette. It's very easy just to open our computers and kind of use the first font that pops up. Or we like blue, so we use blue, but the business is actually green. Taking the time to align it with your overall brand and creating a strong brand visual identity that is always consistent is really important because it gets noticed by your customers. It helps you communicate messages more clearly, and ultimately it leaves a stronger lasting impact. You understand that you were in that environment the whole time. You know that you're in Cafe Joyeux because of the yellow. And so again, just having a moment to sort of think strategically about making those decisions. And like I said, reusable system saves time, but I think probably more importantly to all of you, it saves money as well. There might be a slightly bigger investment upfront in something that's going to, last longer and be reusable, but will certainly make it easier to use and ultimately save you money because you can reuse it. Right. And so I think there were a couple of audible reactions in the room, but we've all seen businesses like the one, or sorry, the example on the right, where there's lots of different colors, lots of different things happening. It kind of gives you the Halloween costume discount store feeling, and that's not how any of our businesses want to show up to the public. And so thinking about how can I leverage my brand's color palette for consistency, maybe with some small nods to that event. If for example we had the Olympics, everybody recognizes the Olympic ring, so that might be worthwhile to think about how do I incorporate that. But we don't need to have Santa's red and green all over just because it's Christmas. Maybe there's a more thoughtful way you can talk about that type of event or holiday while maintaining your brand visual identity. And then thinking about event overlay. So this is not a do or don't, but more of a before and after. If you think about the sort of baseline that we looked at before on the left, it's simple. There's just a couple of signs. It tells you exactly what this business offers and what they're about, what they stand for as a business. And on the right, how might we add to that and slightly edit it to cater to a specific event? And so we haven't added a ton more signage here. We've actually sort of like maintained an equilibrium. You get rid of the sign on the left and add one across the top, and then add a nice, sort of tasteful sandwich board. But it was done through studying what the sort of baseline condition is. This is how customers recognize us. We don't want to sort of rock the boat on that too much. How do we do this in a thoughtful way to communicate something new and different, and capture that sort of energy and momentum from an event, and then it can go back, right afterwards. And then here as well, if you notice on the left, there's this kind of generic clothing label sign, but it's got that V shape at the bottom. It's just a little bit, a flag. And on the right, there's a flag that's maybe a little bit hard to see, but it's celebrating Pride Month. And so all we've done here is replace that sign temporarily for a month or a week or whatever you choose. And it's specific to the event that's happening at that time, but it's not cluttering the storefront or adding more sort of density or volume of signage. And then here, decals can be everyone's best friend. They're fairly affordable, they're quick, and then they come down quickly if you change your mind or the event is over. And when done correctly in that brand color palette or potentially, white or black, depending on the background, they can be done really tastefully. And so you can see here, it's almost hard to see the difference between these two images, which is sort of the purpose. There's a really nice, tasteful sticker or advertisement for the sailing event this summer that looks like it might actually be part of the brand. And so that can lead to more interest and curiosity and discovery. What is this store, this restaurant doing that's correlated to this event that I'm here in town for? Or I know what that is. I'm welcome here. I'm here for this event, and clearly they're excited about it too. So then moving from the exterior of the store to the interior. So we've captured people's interest. They're in the store now, or they're in the environment, or you could think of this logic as they're on my website. They're looking for more information, or they're trying to make a purchase. There are three big buckets to making that journey or that experience easy. And the first is it has to be easy to navigate. If you walk into a store and it's confusing, it's cluttered, maybe there's lots of things you're trying to sell at the very front and it almost feels kind of claustrophobic, you can't walk through it, it's off-putting and you might turn around. But if you walk into a store and there's clear signage and wayfinding to help people navigate, maybe there's a sales associate there ready to help them answer questions right off the bat, it's going to increase the amount of dwell time in the store, and it's most likely going to lead to a better experience. Easy to understand is a big one. If you think about a store that has lots of SKUs everywhere and lots of different types of products, it's hard to understand exactly where do I go? What's most important? What are these different categories? And where is the thing that maybe I had a premeditated need for and need to find quickly? And so really thinking about how do I organize the store so that it's easy to understand and there aren't too many options that ultimately dilute it. And then easy to remember. This is the densest retail or sort of consumer experience, consumer-facing business environment in the world. And so there's a lot of competition. And so what are the small things that you can do, again, tied back to that unique story or that unique value proposition that you're trying to communicate that are going to be easy to remember? Whether those are consistent visual cues within the store that are aligned to your brand identity, or creating that one strong really hero moment or hero experience within the store that has somebody afterwards saying, wow, that was really cool. That was unique. And this journey can be broken up into three key points. So there's the welcome point, which is often, either just outside of an environment or just inside of it. Discovery point. So they're in that environment and they're starting to discover offerings, services, products, and then the transaction. And that welcome point is that first impression that we were talking about. It's seeing that physical environment as an advertisement for something that either resonates with them or not. But that is that first impression of what the experience is that they should anticipate. Discovery might be things like engaging merchandising, things that are set up to encourage people to really look through different products, to maybe read more. Maybe there's marketing materials that tell that story about that New York City producer. And it really invites lingering and browsing and increases the time in which people are spending in that store. And then the transaction point. Ultimately, people want to buy something and leave. But you can make that experience much more layered and much richer, both with thinking about how you've laid out that point of sale. Maybe it's with more products, maybe it's with more information, and then also the actual human experience that they have with the people in your store, making sure that it's more than just taking a credit card or taking a dollar bill. Okay, so I was wrong. There are more questions. What is the single product or item you could feature in your store, cafe, bar, restaurant, etc.? So when we think about that like hero product, what is the one thing that you really want to, sort of lean into in terms of promoting your business or offering? Two T's. Tech Week event. Cool. Teddy bears and animals. That's okay. These are all good examples of you've identified something that is maybe it's already your bestseller or it's a new product that you're really trying to feature and push to create to become one of those bestsellers. And this exercise is about thinking more deeply about the activations and the events that are going to be happening in the city this summer, the types of people that will be coming for those activation events, and how you might correlate these products or these offerings to those events. So I think coffee, is a very easy one in the sense that people are going to want coffee when they're here. How might you get them into your business or your coffee shop to purchase coffee in a way that invites them in and is aligned with the event that they're here for? Again, if maybe they're here for just one day or they're here for a few weeks, are there design decisions that you can make within your store by way of signage and marketing or the way you've laid things out? Again, things on your website or your social media that can promote your coffee story, what is unique about your story, that heritage, the location, the people that work there, where you get the product from, how long you've been in business. What are these unique differentiators that you might be able to really amplify up in a way that feels aligned with the different types of guests that we've talked about and that'll be here for the different events. And lastly, store events. So there are lots of events happening in the city that we've talked about and sort of around the city. Events within these environments are also a really great way to capture unique traffic. And there's a few different types. So you can take over the whole store and or to take over the whole environment. Maybe that's a branded partnership. You're having a collab event with another local business or a business that feels aligned to the event. So a good example of that could be the US Open is happening. You have a bar, but you want to collaborate with the local tennis club and have some sort of event in the store because that's sort of on theme to that event. And so thinking about these events could be really great sort of on-ramps to your business for new communities, new guest types that are aligned with these events that you maybe wouldn't have otherwise been able to tap into. And also just a way to generate buzz and excitement for your existing customers. This place that I always go is doing this really cool event. It's different than when I usually go there, and therefore I'm going to go one more time. Building event coherence. So pretty similar to what we talked about in terms of principles of building coherence within your store, an event acts the same way. And I think we've all experienced when you go into a store, I think a good example is sort of like the liquor store when you walk in and there's just like a white folding table and they're trying to sample something. It doesn't feel that special or that exciting. But if you think about coherence with the look and feel and the experience of the rest of the store, maybe there's a little bit more thought. Doesn't always mean more cost, but more thought put into the way in which you're activating that event that feels inviting, it feels tasteful, and feels aligned with the brand that those customers always knew. And then being intentional. Events don't have to be big budget. They don't have to be largely attended. They need to be impactful. And so you want to make sure that people that go have a great experience, they enjoy themselves, they've either learned something new, experienced something new, or potentially bought something new. But it's through that sort of design discipline that it doesn't just feel like it's ad hoc and thrown together at the last minute, even though maybe it was behind the curtains. But this event is really done with a purpose, and it's communicating something new to those customers. And just these are those sort of micro events that I was hinting at. Again, they're sort of designed for speed, not necessarily longevity or duration. Maybe it's an hour during lunchtime or an hour after work, because what you're promoting is more aligned with that, sort of day part or those customer segments. And you're looking to get high traffic in. And so maybe this is a marketing promotion where you're giving away treats that are themed to the soccer event. Things that can be fun and sort of spontaneous, but feel thoughtful and aligned with these events and the people that will be in the city for them. And then back, to a similar concept like the signage, these events can be repeated. You can kind of create a format. You can have the equipment and the sort of framework to repeat them across different event types, different parts of the calendar year, and that extends way beyond summer. But kind of having a go-to kit or a go-to methodology that you want to activate your store or your environment with special events that could be aligned to really anything that feels special throughout the calendar year. And there's lots of them, just outside of the summer. And then we all know the power of a limited time offer, but creating the interest in scarcity. Maybe this event only happens once, or you've collaborated with a partner or a brand that's only in town for this other event. And so if people feel as though I can't miss this, I need to be there, and then they have this special experience and sort of fondness of your business. Do you see an opportunity to activate your store through a curated or micro event? Or physical environment, maybe is the right. Lots of yeses. That's great. And I would say, if this is something that you haven't done in your environment before, and you're interested in it, thinking about how you can do it in a way that is unique to your business, whether it's leveraging the history, the heritage, the product, the place in which you exist, anybody can do a micro event, but you should do it in a way that is authentic to you and your business, and it will likely be much more successful because people will resonate with that authenticity and be interested in the story that you're telling that is different from others. Okay, that's it. How are we on? Oh, great. So we've got time for questions, both in the room. I don't know if there were any on the chat. Go ahead.
I'm really interested in the slide that you had about. Hi. I was really interested in the slide that you had about the different customer personas for NYC that we want to take advantage of, and then the different needs that they have. It was
Can you get to
in
that
the middle
quickly?
there. I don't know if you can go back to
Can
it.
you get to that slide quickly?
It talks about the different personas that are coming to New York City and what needs they'll have.
This one or
Yes, this one.
this one?
And so, I mean, for me, one takeaway here is that whatever way you engage these people doesn't have to be adjacent to your business. It can be like something totally separate. Like if it's a hot day and you're offering like cold drinks, that doesn't have to be adjacent to your like retail store. Do you have an example of anybody who's taken advantage of this really well in a similar situation?
So it's a great point and a great question. And I'll start with the great point, which is that these special things, whether, these events that are happening in the city present an amazing opportunity to do something different as a means of marketing and getting new eyes on your business. And like we said on this very page, it's okay that these aren't locals. These are people here for one day, a few days, or a couple of weeks because they might become repeat customers within that trip or repeat customers on their annual New York trip, right? And so the opportunity is not just sales, but actual repeat customers, even though they're not locals. I think doing something that is really authentic to that event. I think the water is a great example. I mean, you see people capitalizing on that all the time just on the street. It's a hot day and you're selling water. But having a little bit of time to think ahead of these events and think about what might the nuances be between somebody that's here for the soccer games, which means they're staying in the city and then traveling to a stadium and coming back. What are their needs going to be? Likely time constraint, tired after that event, really excited and energized before that event. How might that affect their behavior in terms of how they interact with your business? And thinking about what are the adjacent offerings to your business that make sense to be offered with this event. So if you're a restaurant or a cafe, obviously water is a natural fit. If you're a clothing store, maybe it's a hand towel because it's a really humid day. And maybe that fabric comes from one of your vendors. This is a fake example, right? But there might be these sort of secondary or tertiary opportunities that have a through line to your actual core business and your brand, and you can tell that story and there's a clear reason, but are also taking advantage of that moment. So I'll think of a real example for you. I want to think of a better one. But those are ways in which you might be able to push yourself to think about how do I do that something that's authentic? Because the inauthentic examples are the ones that don't resonate with anybody, right? You see the shoe store selling food, and I think you're often skeptical. What do I really want a cookie from that place? That's not their area of expertise. But if the shoe store was selling, or giving away quick to go kits that repair your shoe, because we know people are going to a music festival, right? That starts to make more sense and it's more brand aligned. And you have what we would say is permission with the marketplace or customers to kind of take a step outside of your comfort zone and still maintain some level of authenticity or expertise. Yeah.
It's a company by Central Park,
Hmm.
and you just go there. They have everything you need for a picnic: champagne, blankets, baskets, cutlery, cheese, berries, you name it. And she's made a really good business because she took the needs of people who are going to the park and want to have a picnic, but not necessarily want to carry everything with them. And she has different packages. This is for one, this is for two, this is for three. She makes it very easy. You walk in there, there's three of you, and you get a package for three. It is really a no-brainer. And she's very successful. She's been there for a few years, and it's great. But that's a great example.
It's a really good example.
Huh? Yeah. Yeah. It is. It's brilliant.
And some of these opportunities, I think some of the ones that are executed best are pretty spur of the moment, right? It just takes that shift in mindset to think, well, there are opportunities that present themselves for me to do something creative with my business every day, every week. I just have to think a little bit differently that there actually is a way for me to stretch, right? And so some of those best examples are you hear about on the news, oh, somebody thought quickly and there was this event or this thing that changed and they capitalized on it and found a way to offer a service or a product that really helped people. They had a need for it, but also promoted their business.
One thing I was thinking about, Maggie, we might want to add another slide and because I don't know the legal stuff on this, but I know like the Super Bowl is like really on their brand. So I wonder, can you say welcome World Cup fans or FIFA open here? And I want to make sure our small business owners know that they can come up with generic terms that
Right.
they don't get. So you don't have the FIFA police coming in and taking down your sign.
Right. I don't think you can say any of that, but it's a great example. So what are the different ways in which we might, and obviously that's why I've been saying global soccer event. But what are the different ways in which we could capitalize on that event? Is it through aligning yourself with the various countries that are participating in that event, which might provide a great platform for cultural authenticity, particularly in New York? Could it be the food from the different places? Could it be the players and their names? Could it be the traditions of different teams? When you think of like vuvuzelas and things that have become popular over the years, there are all these different layers to each of these events that I think provide really great opportunities to find that little niche that makes sense for your business. And it might change throughout the event. Maybe it's cookies that are of a certain color of teams that are playing at a certain time. And then later in that, in that same tournament, maybe it's a environment that feels culturally aligned to a certain team or people. Exactly. And so it takes thinking about it now in April to be able to do it thoughtfully then.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Hello? Have the passport for that game, that country,
Right.
and that becomes collectible, collect the whole passport and, have a prize for it.
Mhm.
Yeah, and can I just add, so what Tyler said is exactly right. There are requirements around the brand guidelines, so you have to be very careful about that. This serves as a perfect shout out for our Summer of Opportunity guide, which does detail some of those requirements and links out to the official FIFA guidance on that. So definitely check that out. And is there any more questions in the room here? If not, I have one from online. John?
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah, please.
I'm not a plant out of true curiosity. How do we involve Gensler in these decisions? Because like, a lot of our retailers, we have like more than 20 that we're working with to open storefronts in New York, don't necessarily have like a huge budget to spend on, being thoughtful about all of this and then implementing it. So like, what do we bring to Gensler? Who are you looking for? And how do you like work with retailers?
Yeah. So we work with retailers in all sorts of different ways, mostly on designing their stores, but also on their brands, on their marketing strategies, and how to, again, make that experience the best it can be. Small budgets, big budgets, doesn't matter. I think the most important thing we could do to help them is share these materials and ask them some thought-provoking questions that might say, how might you think about this differently? What are your plans currently for activating that storefront? And maybe we can probe and say, well, what about this? Did you ever think about this? Because I think the most important takeaway from this presentation is actually, it's not hire Gensler. It's how can you think like a designer to make some different decisions within your businesses or your stores that might be really impactful on the guest experience or getting guests into that store. And those decisions need not be expensive and they need not be extensive in the sense that you don't need to redesign your store. You don't need to build a whole new room or make a bigger store. It might just be about thinking a little bit more like a designer in the sense of how are people going to experience space and then therefore experience my business, and can I improve that or make that better? But yeah, we can chat more if there's more specific questions. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing. I'm Annie. I make souvenirs and merchandise. I'm glad that the word merchandise appeared a couple of times in the slides. I'm just curious with World Cup coming, a lot of events in summer, based on your observations, what are people buying? What are they interested in? And what should I learn from this? Can I just get some advice on that?
Yeah, great question. A big trend that we're seeing in major retail markets is people are purchasing things in person. So hopefully you're experiencing that. But what they're seeking are unique products that they can't get anywhere else. And I don't just mean by geography, I also mean by that very brand offering different things online versus in person. So people are coming to New York and they might be a lifelong uh, Gucci customer, we'll use a name brand, right? But the stores here offer things they can't get anywhere else. It's only in that New York store. And I think that's where there's a really interesting crossover between a luxury global brand and someone like yourself that owns a small business in New York and offers a product they can't get anywhere else. And so, interestingly enough, both of those items can make it into people's sort of shopping cart, figuratively or literally, during their time in New York, particularly tourists who are looking to say, no one else can get this anywhere else. I bought these things here. And so being able to tell that story, to say that the merchandise or the souvenirs are made differently, made by different people, or there's a unique story there, or truly it's a product that's one of one, is how you can stand out in often a sea of a lot of repeated products or services.
Okay, great. We have one question from our online audience. So, for experience-based brands that don't have traditional storefronts like events or community-centered programming, how would you recommend applying this model to become part of the summer?
So it was saying they don't have the programming.
They don't have the storefront, but
Oh,
you
got it,
have
got it.
more like services, community-oriented.
So I think that that's a really great example of how these activations or events come to life through collaboration. If I'm understanding their business correctly or their sort of service or group, they're looking for people with space, and people with space might be saying, I don't know how to pull this off, or I've never done this before, or might there be a partner that I could leverage to bring more feet or eyes or butts and seats into my space? And so I would think that if you have great ideas and also have the experience and sort of foundation of creating unique programming, potentially producing events, go out into your community and find those businesses that you enjoy or that are like-minded or aligned with your business and your brand story and have a conversation. Maybe there's something really interesting that you could offer to both the local community and the broader tourism community that'll be in the city. So I think it's all about interesting partnerships. I think that's it. Okay. Thank you all. Appreciate you coming.